I'm good.
Whoa!
Most of that 3 seconds was spent trying to process what Lucas had just said and panicking. Oh, audio? Oh, damn.
Here we go. Hi. I don't know why I have to keep doing this. I have to keep convincing.
Weird.
Anyway, hi everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy. Like I said, I gave John and Freeman 3 seconds of warning before hitting the live button, and I played myself. So
like a fiddle. A mind fiddle.
Apparently.
Oh no.
Apparently, I have to keep telling Streamlabs that this is my microphone now, so I just do it every time, I guess. Anyway, hi, welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy. Tonight, we're going to be talking about zombies and post-apocalypse, a topic from the elder days of Ramblemancy. So yeah. But first, there are probably announcements. I think really the big one is just that we have specific dates for our break this summer, and that is that at the very least, I can say like the first week of June will be our last week of streaming until later in the year. So we've got a few more weeks, and then we're going on a break. So yeah. We are not entirely sure about the length of that break just yet, but we'll get back to you on specific dates on that. But yeah.
We all have various things going on, and it's going to be con season, with some of which I will be attending, local and not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we'll talk more about that when we are talking about that.
we'll talk about it more when we're ready to talk about it more.
There it is. I think that's it. I think that's literally our only announcement. I think that's the whole thing. In Too Deep, as some of you may know, is already on their mid-season break. They will be back later in the year as well. So yeah. Other than that, here we are.
Good stuff going on all around.
Yeah.
Hello to everyone in chat.
Hello.
Geekouts, Karaoke Night, Eliane Creations, Amethyst Cat Lady, and Edgefit. Long time no see. I saw, I think, every single one of you in my chat earlier. And by earlier, I mean 45 minutes ago. Because like a maniac, I have streamed twice today now. Playing Codenames.
Hell yeah. Yeah, tonight we are talking about zombies and post-apocalypse. John, what do you got for us?
Well, tonight, given that we are talking about zombies, I thought that we should talk about the most important zombie of them all, Rob Zombie, notable rock singer.
Oh, wow.
Okay, all right.
You got me there.
This bit would go a lot better if I knew anything about Rob Zombie. Other than having glanced at the Wikipedia page for a moment, I would like to thank Edgefit for this bit, who pitched it to me earlier from Twitch chat.
You listen to Sick Bubblegum? It's good.
Is that a real song by Rob Zombie?
Yeah, I believe it is. I haven't listened to it for a long time.
I want to go listen to it now, just off the name.
Yep.
Anyway,
I didn't think past my bit, so really I have played myself.
And now we're gonna all sit here uncomfortably while John figures out a way of getting us back on track.
Yeah, that is how the beginning of the show typically goes. Anyway, post-apocalypse and zombies is a topic that harkens back to the earliest days of Ramblemancy here on this fine channel. One of our very first topics, and one that is near and dear to our hearts. We talk about it fairly frequently around here, just kind of in little bits, kind of connected to other things. But given that it is media that we have all recently visited, given that Lucas and I have been playing some Dying Light, we thought it might be a fun topic to just actually sit down and have a conversation about again, because there's always, I feel like there's always kind of a lot going on with zombie media, or like post-apocalypse media, or post-apocalyptic media, and I don't know. We were talking about quite a few things earlier, in terms of like some tropes, and like I know one of the ones that we universally just disagree, like all agree is horrible in child zombies.
The worst.
I don't know that there is a single show that has pulled off a scene with a child, or like show or piece of media that has pulled off a scene with a child zombie where I didn't walk away from it going, gross, why did you make me watch that?
So, well, here's the thing. I'm not saying that this is better. I still didn't like it, but there is, I think, a movie called Wicked Little Things, where it is just all the zombies are children. But I think that's less what we're talking about, and more talking about like the Zombaby. That's
every time.
It's not good. Like every single movie, I think, that has that movie, show, game, whatever, didn't need to do it. Like the movie would have been the same, I think.
As what Nico's saying, but that's kind of the point, though, right? And where I fall on it is like, I already find the concept of undeath and like zombies and like this inexorable, like, you know, the very like personification of death and its overwhelming force and all of that. Like, I already find that, and like the whole like rotting flesh and people being turned into these mindless like you know, forces of hunger, like horrifying enough. I seldom need the line crossed to children being affected by it, because I already know logically speaking that, yeah, there are going to be child zombies in this universe. Sure. There are a lot of ways that you can sell to me the completeness of the horror of this apocalyptic event that don't involve actually distressing me a little bit. And I know that like maybe it's particular for me, but harm to children is a line that I know that a lot of people have. So
yeah, I mean, like, I understand that it's supposed, like Ezra said, it's supposed to be shocking and disturbing for cheap shock value. I agree, that is what it's for. I take issue with that whole thing as a concept, regardless of how it's brought across, but that's me. That's why for me, my favorite horror movies are not the ones that go for like the like jump scares and gore are, like, to me, the lowest form of horror film. So like, jump scares are fine if they are applied in a very judicious and sparing manner, and I think are most effective when they're telegraphed, right? Like, I think jump scares are most effective when they're telegraphed. But anyway, the what was I gonna say? There was a question that Edgefit asked earlier about fast zombies or slow ones. Which one is scarier? Honestly, fast zombies. I know that there's something to the horror of having like the shambling hordes or whatever, but like the idea that there's one that it would be really hard to get away from, like, that's to me the scarier thing. It'd be really hard to get away from the fast one, or the one that moves very quickly, and yeah, I just don't like it. I don't like when things are as fast as I am.
it's one of the things. So like the game that Lucas and I have been playing is Dying Light, which is a you know, survival crafting kind of open world zombie game. But the quirk is sort of that you're like a parkour runner, and so like you're very mobile, right? And by comparison, anyone is mobile to a shambling zombie. But like, there are shambling hordes, but there are also a variety of zombies at a variety of speeds that will chase you up buildings and parkour after you, and that shit's terrifying.
That's like I think in the lore of like the sci-fi show Z Nation, the fresher a zombie is, the more like mobile and active it is. So like if they've been around for a while, they're gonna be like the slow shamblers. But if they're like just turned, then they're gonna be strong. They're gonna be fast, and they're gonna So like, yeah,
cool concept.
Quinn.
Oh.
Good to see you, Quinn. We're talking about post-apocalypse and zombies, a topic from the early days of Ramblemancy.
Episode 5, actually.
Was it 5? Oh, wow. Yeah. We've talked about post-apocalypse since then, but not like this specific combination of things, I think. We've talked about post-apocalypse media before, and like, but more that was more about like picking it apart and thinking about it. This is more just like talking about the thing itself. But yeah, uh, Ellie said also zombabies make no sense when you think about it. As morbid as it is, there would not be anything left because they can't get away with just only being bitten. True, but in shows like The Walking Dead or what was I gonna say? The Walking Dead or Z Nation or shows like that where like the infection is everybody is infected. It like brings them back when they die, basically, right? A bite will be lethal, yes, but like everyone is infected, and so death of any kind, right? Then like
Right.
the idea of infants dying in a post-apocalyptic world and then turning into zombies is like I understand like the logic behind it. I still don't want to see it. I don't want it. I don't want that in my like so like there is an explanation I think in some shows for it. I don't need it. I just don't need it. Also like it always ends up being so like poorly done. Like I've never seen it done well in a way that it conveys the horror and shock more than it conveys just like this is absurd and kind of almost funny if it weren't so horrifying, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I just don't know that there's a way to do it where like one, I don't like it. Two, I don't know that there's a way to do it where it actually is not doesn't tip over into the absurd, you know? But yeah.
I like what Danny said about it, which is that child zombies are like when a game makes a dog or a wolf attack you and then has them make sad puppy noises when you hit them. I'm like, yes, fuck you. I hate it when you do this to me.
Yeah. We were talking about this last night in voice chat when I was playing, and Danny said basically the same thing, and that I agree. I 100% agree. It's basically
giant ravenous warg attacking me, and now it's going like anytime I try and like
prevent it from murdering snarl and growl at me until it dies. Like
exactly.
Don't turn it around on me like yeah. Don't make me feel just terrible now.
I only have one option, and that is to like I don't know whatever game I'm playing, like if it's Skyrim or something. Like my only option is to hit it with a giant sword or
unless
shoot
you're a wood elf.
Unless you're a wood elf. There are some beast taming skills in Skyrim.
That's true.
I've never understood them or how they work.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, catching up with chat. The Last of Us concept of older zombies developing more weird powers. Yeah, I think that is really cool. I do like when zombie fiction gets really weird, right? And like when you start delving into like zombies who start developing weird powers. And like I think Resident Evil kind of goes over the top with that one to the point where it's like this isn't weird, it's just sort of like this feels just kind of oh gosh, like I'm trying to think of like I think Resident Evil doesn't do this particularly well. I think when zombies develop like almost supernatural or like psionic abilities, that's the sweet spot for me. That's when shit gets weird and you start delving into like weird fiction. I'm into it. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or like
that is now just anime. Thank you, Edgefit. That was basically those were the words that were playing around in my brain, and I couldn't. Yes.
Yeah, at a certain point, Resident Evil games like have a tendency to like continuously one up themselves with stuff to the point where I'm like, this feels less like I am playing like a zombie game now, and more like I am kind of just playing like a sci-fi horror game.
Yeah. Which is fine. Like that's what they're going for, I think. But like, yeah. Edgefit and I sharing a brain cell today. Yeah, it's just exactly not what I signed up for. Let's see. Amethyst said, not to mention the psychological damage that kind of subject matter can have on child actors if they don't do full CGI. Goes for other genres depicting violence against children also. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. With some of that stuff, like I could certainly understand that. I think I'm very specifically talking about something that can only be CGI'd, which is the Zombaby, right? Like that's the thing that can only be CGI'd.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's never done well. Like the CGI, I mean, like the CGI is never done well, and so it just tips it into the patently absurd, and it's
Yeah.
just
Like Z Nation, for instance.
right, yeah,
That's a
or
good
the
example.
Dawn of the Dead remake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, Karaoke Night said, the zombie genre as a whole to me highlights the inevitability of death with a focus on the death caused by our own actions, but with the unique point of view being able to, like, you're not able to do anything about it. While there are simple zombie eat people types of movies, I feel like the most memorable zombie media capitalizes on the dread brought on by the feeling of helplessness and the inevitable. And I would tend to agree. Like I think your best zombie media is going to be the stuff that capitalizes on that feeling, because like
Mhm.
undeath
yeah,
in general, I think is that kind of symbol or metaphor for the inevitability or like the inexorability of death, right?
Mhm.
um Zombies and the undead in general are like a more present reminder of a character's or a society's mortality,
hmm
to get sort of like high level English majory about it.
Mhm.
yeah. I so I'm trying to think of what thing I want to address, because there's that what you just said, but also I saw Danny talk about something earlier a second ago, which was there's
Mm-hmm.
one that does convey the horror I can think of. One of the Resident Evil games, the main guy runs into a father and daughter, and the daughter is clearly in the process of turning, but the dad's in denial and is so focused on protecting her and refusing to see what's happening to her. See, and I think that actually does tie in with what John and Karaoke Night were just saying, where that the reason that is so effective is because it does tap into that sort of like the horror of inevitability,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And like denial in a world like that is such a powerful storytelling tool, I think, you
Yeah.
know. But one of the reasons why like early on, or not early on, but like in the like mid, like post 2010 zombie media, basically, I started to get kind of like, I understand that there are
Oh, hey Tony.
hi. There are certainly there's something to be said about writing a world for your fictional, like for your zombie media, where there is no fictional zombie media, right? But it just became less and less plausible to me that, as pervasive as zombie media had become at that time, that within the zombie media, when there started to be zombies, people were not just like immediately like, oh yeah, zombies, and they're like, what's going on, why aren't they going down, what is this, right? It's just, I think you can still convey the horror of the whole situation without having people being completely clueless, you know.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's almost worse if they know what's going on.
Yeah, like I don't know, it does become extremely implausible to me at a certain point where everyone would just be like, I understand that, like, there's the shifting from, oh wow, zombies are a piece of, like, they're a fictional trope, to, oh, this is my reality now. And like certainly there's some like play there, and like a certain denial like you said, but like everybody knows what a zombie is, and it's
Right.
not like undead and undeath and even zombies are not something that hasn't existed in literature for a long
Right.
time. So you're kind of just like going, oh yeah, so like we know what vampires are in this world, but we don't know what zombies are. And
That's
we
why I
but
think,
we do accept the existence of ghosts and like ghouls, but not zombies, so that we can have this thing where they don't know what they are. And I'm like,
yeah,
this feels like a stretch.
that's why I think in zombie media that has an outbreak storyline, which is what I'm calling the origin stories, but for zombies.
Mhm.
The outbreak
Mm-hmm.
storyline. I think it's more compelling when people see what is happening, but their reticence to like, end a zombie isn't that they don't know what's happening and like they don't know how to do it, but it's in that, what if, like, we don't know how this works, what if there's a cure, right? Because
Mhm.
I think that is actually a very like compelling point, right? Like, even in real, like, just like saying for argument's sake, hypothetically, like, if there is if there were to be like a zombie apocalypse in real life and there's zombies in real life and we were just like we like saw one, we'd be like, "Ah, yes, conceptually I understand what this is." But do I want to take the step to kill this thing that was once a person, not knowing what the rules are, not knowing how it works, and
Yeah.
maybe there is a cure, right? And
Yeah,
that's
like maybe this person could get better.
right,
Right.
right. And I
Mhm.
think that's valid. I think that's a very valid concern. But going, what is it? Why won't you die? Like that's to me,
Mhm.
that's like, all right, that's played out. Let's move on from that.
Yeah,
They did do that
please.
a little bit, both of those things, which is why so far I've only watched 2 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, but they
Hmm.
sort of did that exactly. There's one character in there who knew the whole time what was happening, which I think is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
It was like the one student who's like, yeah, I know what's up. And no one believed him. And then it started happening. And there was a lot of miscommunication because everything was starting to break down.
hmm,
So there's like that whole thing. No one's communicating who should, and those who can communicate can't because things are breaking
right,
down drastically.
right,
And there's a whole like exactly there's the part about I don't know if there's a cure, like they could get better.
hmm,
Like, am I going to take this very big step to
right,
possibly end this person's life? Is a very very crazy thing to go through.
yeah. I think there's a kind of going back because Edgefit did make an interesting question, and I think
Mhm.
Nico pretty much answered it for all of us. But I will just sort of get in here and say, Edgefit said, "What do you think about all these movies and TV series, many video games, reaching so hard to not call them zombies?" And Nico said, "It's bad, and people need to stop doing it." And that pretty much sums it up. I'm in this. I'm right there with you. Like,
I'm fine if they have names like that for zombies. Like I think it's fine if they also say the word zombie. Like yeah, they're like, yes, this is a zombie.
right, like Z
Like
Nation, they call them Z's, they call them zombies. Like Karaoke Night said, puppies and kittens, right? Like that's
Mhm.
their code,
Yeah,
like puppies
that's
and
right.
kittens. You know, um, that's yeah. I think that's cool, but like they also do just call them zombies in real life. In a real life situation like that, we would just call them what they are because like even if there is because there's no like if they just suddenly started existing we would just call them zombies because that's the closest analog to what we have. So even if it is not exactly what it is, we would still call them that because that's the closest to what. Anyway,
Mhm.
yeah,
Just like zombies.
no,
I'm guessing they did that for that reason.
zom zombies. Zombies? Overpronouncing the B and I like in zombies. It feels wrong to me every time it comes out of my mouth.
I saw something. Hold on, I'm trying to scrolling up because I thought I saw something kind of interesting that somebody said. Nico said, "I would love to see more supernatural zombies instead of infected." To be honest, and
Mhm.
that's very interesting. I I agree, but I also don't know that I'd want to see more like Evil Dead style stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'd want to see. I don't know. I would be very particular about that, but I think yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
the zombie animals trope. Yes, I agree. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
It's not as far up as the zombie child, like the zombie baby, like for me, but I also hate zombie
What is it
animals. The zombie animals
in
trope, like
Max Brooks World War Z? I believe in the lore of World War Z, animals are immune. It affects
mhm.
humans exclusively. I
Mhm.
think.
Edge of it. Yeah, Edgerford says, yeah, stop killing dogs in zombie movies challenge 2022. And like we've all seen Old Yeller. We
Mhm.
don't need to watch another like 45 minutes of this
Right.
movie where we rehash it again. I just want to trust that when I go to see a movie with like a zombie flick or I'm watching a zombie show, if there's a dog in it, this dog better not turn into a fucking zombie. I just want to trust you on this for once. Like,
Yeah. Yep. Stop killing dogs in zombie movies challenge 2022.
I like the idea. well, I don't like it, but it could work that the animals could carry if it's a virus based, right?
Right.
Which we're trying to move away from that a little bit, but if it's virus based, maybe it could still give it to you, but
Right.
still just be a regular
Right,
old,
just like a carrier, but not like
yeah.
yeah.
But I also agree. No more, no brain eating cats
Yeah.
after me.
Has anybody? I know the two of you probably haven't. I think because I think I've told you about it, but I think you probably haven't. I don't think you've heard it. But there's anybody else listen to We're Alive, the podcast audio drama. It's
Such a small amount.
yeah, God, it's so good. Like I don't mean like it is good zombie media, but it's also really really good just at podcast as a podcast. It's so good. Um, they have a new series coming out currently, I think. Anyway, it's real good, and I highly recommend it if you haven't listened to it already. So if you need some podcast audio drama, We're Alive, yo. It's real good. Um, there's We're Alive Lockdown, which is a parallel story to the original We're Alive. And then there's We're Alive Gold Rush, which happens some like 15, 20 years, something like that after. And then there's the one that's currently coming out that I don't remember the name of and I haven't listened to any of. But yeah. Yeah, it's so good. Like the production value of it, like the audio engineering in it is so it's just and the voice acting, it's all incredible. Like genuinely I have yet to find another like podcast audio drama that I have enjoyed as much or gotten into as much as that one. But yeah. Um
Blizzard Star said, more spookums, vampires, ghosts, zombies risen from the graves, less infection, and making you kill your loved ones.
yeah, fair enough.
Fair.
Yeah.
Anybody watch? It's not technically zombie media, but it kind of plays like it. It reads a little bit like zombie media. Van Helsing, the sci-fi
Yeah.
series.
Okay.
It's basically
Absolutely.
the premise of it is that like the super volcano in Yellowstone blows, creating big ash cloud and whatever that basically covers the sun but doesn't make it like constantly nighttime. Just sort of covers like makes enough UV cover that like vampires can start coming out and then they just sort of take over. It's I actually really really enjoy that show. It's and it the early seasons definitely play like zombie media. Because you've got like but it's actually kind of scarier because the vampires are sentient and aware and can think and strategize and they are very fast and very strong.
Yeah.
They also have certain like levels of vampires too,
Right, because
which
they've
is
got
really
the ones
cool.
that they've got the ferals that like
Mm-hmm.
have been basically like starving and they're basically just zombies.
They're basically zombies, yeah.
So I think this is a decent question. What thematically? What makes like the zombie media genre? What are the core like pillars of the genre? Because like certainly I think pretty much any zombie media is going to be some kind of post-apocalyptic or like apocalyptic media, right? Because people turning into like gajillions of people turning into zombies and trying to eat each other is obviously going to upend society. But like, what are the pillars of zombie media apart from the obvious undead?
Edge of It, yes, that's the one I'm talking about with starring Kelly Overton. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. It's real good. I love that show. Anyway, I think Edge of It says I think zombie is a setting rather than a genre. Interesting. Cornerstones or tropes? I think right now karaoke night we're talking about what are the cornerstones, what are the things that kind of make that genre. I am I'm unsure about zombies as a setting rather than a genre, but I am intrigued by the idea. I don't know that I would necessarily agree, but
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I'm fully on board with that zombies are just a setting piece,
because
or
they
zombies
doesn't
are.
it doesn't, because even I won't even entirely agree with what you said, John, because I don't think that zombie media has to be immediately like apocalyptic.
Mhm.
Like there definitely is um
Hmm.
uh there definitely is a certain amount of validity to zombie media that does not happen in the apocalypse. Like, was it Flight of the Living Dead or something like that?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
like where it's in a contained sort of,
Fair.
you know,
Yeah.
right? It's not necessarily like a worldwide
Worldwide.
outbreak or something. You know, it's like
Oh.
uh just going to interject here. Quality horror parody featuring the great Christopher Lloyd, Dead Before Dawn 3D, zombie demon hybrids. You won't regret it. It's on the list now. Thank you, Amity.
Just put that on there.
um, let's see. 28 Days Later is an adventure survival horror. Yes. Um, I can see an argument for zombies as a setting rather than a genre. I could see it. But I think there are other genres that themselves could be like, I'm trying to think of, there was one that I was thinking about a while ago and I'm trying to think of what it was. There's a genre that man, I cannot remember what it was.
Hmm.
But there are, see, without being able to think of the other example, I actually cannot make my point, and I that's really frustrating. But
Yeah.
but
While
I
you ruminate, karaoke night does have a good response, I
mhm.
think. I think a lot of things all of these zombie adjacent movies have in common are a loss of authority, people taking matters into their own hands. So like I think that's a fair point. Like tends to be like a trope in a lot of zombie flicks is that like I think almost universally there is some kind of power structure that's upended by this, right? Whether it's because the people at the top are responsible for the outbreak and now people are pushing like fighting against them, or whether it's because there's a massive power vacuum because all of the people who inhabited the power structures are now shambling zombies, right? So I think it's a fair one.
Hmm.
And like loss of authority and like loss of structure, even especially if we're
Mhm.
talking about I think especially if we're talking about the apocalyptic kind of subgenre of zombie media, right? But I suppose like you're right, there are versions of this where it's like a more contained like outbreak or
I mean,
like
and
some kind of supernatural
it
something like
still
something where it's
does
less.
have elements of that. It's just a scaled down version of those elements. So like you can definitely, yeah, collapse of society or collapse of structure, like Nico says, are probably um, definitely pillars of it. Because even in a contained space, right? Even if it takes place entirely on like a cruise ship or something, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That still is a breakdown of order on the cruise ship. It's just not global. So it's the same but scaled down.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think any writer worth their salt writing a zombie flick that takes place exclusively on a cruise ship, one of the first group of people to be infected after the initial person is going to be the captain and anybody else who knows how to drive the fucking ship. So like,
right.
like
Yeah.
Oh no! Someone has to make a movie now.
I'm sure that's already a movie.
You think
oh yeah,
so?
it's
I'm
gotta be.
dead dead certain it's already a movie. Um
Um yeah, it's gotta be. And
I guess so.
it probably aired at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon on Sci-Fi, like if we're being honest.
yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Now that you've said that, that tracks.
Tony says, now let's go back to the 80s, 90s style of Living Dead films. Zombies where it's your partner contracts but retains consciousness and fights for you, Hellraiser style. Now
All
that's kind
right.
of wild.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a
I
whole other that's a
Mhm.
whole other like branch of zombie media
I
that
mean
like where
that is kind of what we're like when I mentioned like the Evil Dead style, right? Like that's a little bit like kind of what we're talking about here. That's the
well, yeah, like the kind of campy zombie flicks. Like what's the other
Hmm.
one? God,
Yeah, sorry. Karaoke Night. Yes, Falling Skies. Fucking great show. Lot of really good stuff about that show. I could rave about it, but it's also been like god, almost a decade since I saw it last. So, yeah. Um really good. Um Warm Bodies Edge of It? Is that the one? Is that what it's called?
yeah,
Warm
Emily
Bodies?
Cranberry
Yes, yeah.
says.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Um yeah. Uh that was a pretty good movie. I liked that movie. I didn't know it was a book until much later, but yeah,
I
I
think
enjoyed the movie.
yeah, I think our cornerstones so far are zombies, obviously, death and
What makes
upheaval.
the zombie genre? What must it contain? Zombies. I don't know
I
why we're still
always
talking about. No, I'm.
Headshots are very important. Apparently, it's very. Oh.
Um.
And I think the last one I was going to say was just like what we talked about, which is like upheaval of power structures, and
Mhm.
somewhere like or like
Well,
collapse of power structures.
Mhm.
and I think there's also something to be said about. I mean, I think this is less about like what it has to have, and this is more about the appeal of the genre. But I think some of the appeal of the genre is that it is morally uncomplicated, right? You have a bunch of like shambling, mindless beings who want nothing more than to end you and your closest friends, and that is morally uncomplicated, right? There is
Mm-hmm.
like it's completely okay to just mow them down en masse, right? And I think that's probably. I'm not saying that's what's appealing to me about the genre, but I think just appealing in general about the genre. Like you could probably. There's a conversation here about this very subject within the realm of TTRPGs, which we will not talk about because that's not what we're talking about tonight. But having the morally uncomplicated thing is yeah, I don't know. I think that's part of the appeal of the zombie media. It's not just a breakdown of society and
Mhm.
order, it's a breakdown of society and order and an objective enemy that can
Mhm.
be, that is morally uncomplicated.
Yeah, you look at either whether they're fast zombies or slow zombies or supernatural zombies or like viral induced ones or we don't know it's something weird. Like no matter what it is, you look at the shambling hordes of things that want to eat you and everything you love, and you go, "That's bad."
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You
Ain't
know,
no two, like ain't no.
yeah.
there's
You
there's no
know,
real like debate about this. Like somebody, of course, is going to put up the mandatory like, but there's still people in there, like kind of deal. And oftentimes zombie stories do tend to be at humanity, but it rarely tends to be in any of the way that the characters think it is. Right. Like it's more about what we do in the face of those structures that support us in society collapsing and how we handle that and how we handle community and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think that often tends to be, even in like kind of campy zombie media, I think that tends to be another kind of thing that winds up having a lot of focus, like the essential like humanity and what you do with life in the face of that inexorable, some of the other cornerstones of the genre, like that inexorable death, right?
Yeah.
yeah. Also, the aesthetic is really cool too. Like the look of everything after a while, and after you've scavenged for things, and you're just like a patchwork of random like armor fittings on your clothing,
The
and your
Road
your
Warrior
pants are like
aesthetic.
yeah, essentially. That's also very cool.
Yeah. Um, okay, something that bugs me though on the other side of it is when there's human antagonists, and when they end up getting eaten, the audience is supposed to feel justified because he deserved to die. But I think that bugs me in all media. I don't think death is always a good answer to a villain. No, you know what? That is a fair point. I There is a related topic that I don't know belongs in this Ramblemancy about redemption arcs and how they're handled. Something that a conversation that I had at like 3 o'clock in the morning last night with talking with my dad. But like there's a conversation I think to be had about, it's a related topic I think to what you were just talking about. But I also agree. I don't know that death is a good answer to the villain. I will say, not that let's put it this way. Let's preface this. I agree with you. However, I will also say that there is something kind of symbolic and metaphorically powerful, I think, about a human antagonist in zombie media being taken down by the zombies. Because if you look at what the zombies represent, which is an existential threat to all of humanity, right? And one human is actively working against the other humans, and then gets, like, in their final end is being consumed by the zombies. Metaphorically, it's sort of, in a way, you're looking at, or thematically I should say, you're seeing that basically it doesn't matter how, like, badass or terrible or you know, how much of a tyrant you are, but the end comes for us all. And this person got taken down because by this existential threat, because they're working not with the rest of humanity but against humanity for themselves, right? And I think there's a certain, so like, I agree with you. I think that that's sort of it can be a lazy thing, but in zombie media specifically, I think it can work, right? I think it can work within the context of the of like the like kind of the story that John was talking about earlier, about, which is like, you know, the community, the coming together, the handling, like the aftermath and facing down the inevitable by coming together, right? And I think that within that, but I will say also that I think that only works if that is what the media is trying to do. If it's just like, here's a convenient end for the bad guy, let's just we gotta figure out some uncomplicated way of dealing with the bad guy and tying up that loose end, all right, he's gone, he gets eaten by zombies, then I think it's just kind of like, it is just sort of a lazy kind of out.
I don't know, like it can be done well, and it can also be the equivalent of yes, the cliff edge crumbled beneath them at the last moment, sparing the hero from having to make a choice.
Right, exactly.
Right, you know,
it's like, now the hero is off the hook. They don't have to decide whether to kill the bad guy or let them live and potentially allow them, like, and then weigh the questions of justice and, you know, all this sort of stuff. We don't have to have anybody deal with that morally complex question, because the choice was taken out of their hands, because zombies. That's right. I think where it becomes lazy.
Yeah, like I said, the equivalent of like the ground giving way beneath the villain kind of deal.
Yes. Yes, the Kiyoshi option.
Oh wow.
Well, I guess bitch is gonna die. Like,
I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah, no, I think I'm with you on that, karaoke. I think that.
What about when the villain makes, when they like, they make their choice to go against humanity, and then during a moment where they could have gotten away, they decide to sacrifice themselves.
So
I think,
interesting. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
I think that I'm trying to think of where I've seen this, because I've seen it somewhere in zombie media where,
yeah,
I think they created the problem, and then they go on just like not telling anyone, and then, or not feeling any remorse, but then something gets them back to humanity at the very last minute, and they decide to make the decision to sacrifice themselves so that everyone can get away, or at least two people can get away. So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
that kind of works though.
I think it still works. Are you talking about like within the narrative of like the
Yeah.
community and communal effort coming? Yeah, I think it still works because basically what you're saying, in a way, that's sort of representative of justice, right? On like it's a balancing of the scales, metaphorically
Yeah.
speaking. Because yes, they have been shitty this whole time. They have caused many problems. They have, probably been responsible for no small amount of suffering. But
Hmm.
in the end, not they die, yes, but they don't die only to die. They
Yeah.
die to, in the end, to help. And I think in a
Yeah.
way it is sort of a shorthand for a balancing of the scales. It is
Hmm.
in a way justice, right? It's kind of.
Makes sense. Hmm.
I think there is a way to read that it's like, oh yes, but this is lazy justice, which, like,
Yeah.
sure, but I think that's kind of where that fits, as far like that specific trope that you're talking about. I think that's where that
Hmm.
fits.
Yeah, well, like humans are communal creatures. Our kind of whole deal is pair bonding and and community, and so like in these stories, like I think circling it back to something like, yes, they were trying to do something in the interest of at least a group of people, and not just being utterly selfish or something like that. Like, that I think tends to be the kind of thing that people are shooting for.
Hmm.
Yeah. um.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it was a zombie Korean film that came out, a show that came out somewhat recently that I'm thinking
Mm,
of. Yeah. We're all dead or something.
interesting. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen that trope in other genres.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think if I've seen it in zombie media, and I'm not entirely sure that I have, but um, yeah, that is very interesting. I think when we go, I'm still sort of stuck on what Edgefit said earlier about zombies being a setting more than a genre, and
Hmm.
I think where I land on that is I can see where you're coming from, but I would probably take what you are seeing and defining as a setting as like a genre within which other genres can fit, right? Like you can have like sci-fi, for example. Science fiction is a genre in and of itself, but within that you can have a sort of more adventure genre. You can have like other sort of things fit within that. Like that's not to say that it can't, like that zombies can't be a setting, because just like, I mean, I think Star Wars proved that sci-fi can be a setting instead of a genre, right? Like that's not a sci-fi story, but that is a sci-fi setting. Um,
Yeah, in the same breath as you have like starships and laser cannons and faster than light drives, you also have space with wizards with magic swords. So like, you know,
you have a battle of good and evil. Like you
Hmm.
have, yeah, that's
a literal princess.
mm-hmm,
Like,
yeah. Um, Another classic zombie trope that I love: the last stand, when a character knows they're fucked and goes apeshit to take out as many undead as possible kicked, before they kick the bucket. Yes. I know that this isn't zombie media, but it might as well be kind of. My thought is the movie Serenity, right? River Tam
Hmm.
going apeshit against all the Reavers.
That
yes.
did come across my mind as well.
That's not the
Yeah.
same thing I think that Nico is talking about, but that is the first thing that came to mind when I was reading Nico's comment. But yes, I do also like that trope. Um,
Me too. I think I
Resident
actually did it for
Evil,
the.
Resident Evil 3, the movie Resident Evil Apocalypse. Uh, no, Apocalypse is the second one. What's the third one? Extinction. Resident Evil
Mhm.
Extinction. Um,
I think so.
Resident Evil Extinction, Carlos, like he blows himself up. He's like been
Mm.
bitten and he like drives the big truck, the big tanker, and like blows himself up to like give them an opening to get to Umbrella. To get to the Umbrella, like
you just
facility.
know it's gonna happen too because he finds that
He
joint.
finds the joint.
You know it's gonna happen. He's saving that joint for that moment.
Yeah.
It's a surefire way to go out in the zombie. What's the zombie film equivalent of like war movies where like it's a death sentence if you show somebody a picture of your sweetheart back home or your family back home,
Yeah.
like you're fucking dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like within the next 15 minutes, probably you will die.
Yeah.
Like is there a zombie movie equivalent to that? This isn't like a deep genre defining
Interesting.
question. This is almost a meme that I am asking, but
It's
like
kind of cool.
I mean,
like
I think that just exists in the like that specific thing exists in zombie media too.
Mhm.
But
is that because I feel like there is, and it might be like it might literally be that as well, like showing somebody like a picture of your family or something like that. Like that feels like a very
I
zombie
think
flick thing. But there's also
it's related. But I actually genuinely think that anyone who is not the main character who is looking for a lost child probably gonna die.
cycling through the examples in my head, and yeah, it tends to be that way. The kid is dead, and we all know it from the minute that we meet that character.
But I was actually thinking that the character, if the kid isn't dead, then like the character who's looking for them is gonna die the moment they find the kid.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Or as
absolutely.
a result of whatever they had to do to get the kid.
Zombies aren't real. Yeah, the denial character.
That's a good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Newly married, stoner, the gruff prepper. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Anyone being optimistic about the future that is not part of the main group.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone being like, I'm sure this is gonna work out that isn't part of like the core cast is dead. Like they are toast. I do appreciate Newly Married because I know I've seen that trope several times where like we got married in the zombie apocalypse, like look at this like bright little thing, happy thing, and this hopeful thing that happened, and then one of them is going to die.
I think anyone who is charismatic but and somewhat likable but also shitty, right? Anyone who is like charismatic and shitty but likable in their shittiness gonna die. Like like I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but I can't quite get there.
What's the this isn't a zombie film, but what's the doctor's name in the first few episodes of The Expanse who dies right away?
Oh god, I don't fucking remember.
Is it Shep?
Could be something like that. I don't know.
Anyway, that character, kind of funny, generally likable. Not a good person.
Not a good person, but
kind of annoying, frankly.
Yeah.
But you do still feel bad when a railgun round just completely like takes the guy's head off. Like you do still feel bad.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, the nice people are always cannibals. Yes.
Yep. Another classic zombie film trope. Like the nice people are always cannibals.
And really in any apocalypse media, if it feels too good to be true, it is. Because if it's too good to be true, it is one of two things. Actually, it is one of three things.
Oh.
Cannibals, weird dystopian, like, fascistic sort of thing happening, or doomed. It is one of those three things, always.
Yeah.
And like funnily enough, it's seldom doomed. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cult I would tie in with cannibals because
I would guess so.
I would,
actually
not that they're not because they're the same thing all the time, but because I think it fits into the same like category of things. You know,
it's like this feels too good to be true.
Yeah, or want to feed you to their zombie wife. Yes.
Ooh.
Yep.
If it's a cottage with a lovely old couple, leave.
Yes.
They're going to drug you and kill and eat you. Like
even in Fallout 3, is it Fallout 3? Yeah, Fallout 3, I think, where like you run it. There's this place that you can go to where there's people who are living like totally fine. They're totally happy. Everyone's good, and you investigate for a little while, and you find, was it some kind of like mysterious meat or something like that? And if you look around enough,
Ooh.
you find out that they're cannibals, and then you have to fight them. Yeah,
Ooh.
that
Wait,
they
what?
lure people like you in, and then they kill them and eat them.
Ooh, that's Fallout, you said?
Fallout 3, I think.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah, there's a
not good.
yeah. So like that's a pretty solid standard trope in, I think, all post-apocalypse media. Yeah, like if it's yeah, in post-apocalypse media, I guess not. Like there's also the possibility that like yeah, there you go.
Soylent Green is people.
Or in the context of Snowpiercer, which, like, spoilers if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's bugs for some reason. Like, side note for anybody who's seen Snowpiercer, and you've seen the little like protein cubes that they get of like this weird like gelatin kind of stuff. At our school, periodically they would serve, like, in the dessert area, they would serve like little jello squares, and it was grape jello, and every single time I saw it, I was like, it's like Snowpiercer, because it looked exactly like the scene.
Wow.
And so I never had it. One, because I hate grape flavored things, and two, because I couldn't get every time I saw it, I couldn't get the image of like billions of bugs being just ground up into like protein squares.
Soylent Green is PayPal. Thank you, captions.
Yes, it is. Soylent Green is PayPal.
Oh, Danny also said there's also a town in Fallout 4 that's all perfect, but it turns out they'll kill anyone they think might be a synth. Yeah, like that.
Really?
That tends to be just in post-apocalyptic stories in general. In addition to zombie media, like if there's a community where everyone is super nice and friendly, there is something deeply wrong, like just beneath the surface.
If it seems like there's people who are just thriving and like super nice and they've got everything going in sort of utopia, something is horribly wrong, or it's about to be horribly wrong.
Yeah, like either of the two. Like either they are all about to die in a very messy, bad way, or like something is really fucked up.
Yeah.
Nico says, I have not seen the media do the most realistic zombie take, which is corporations exploiting them for free labor.
The ending of Shaun of the Dead. That's exactly what they did, I think. Is that what I'm thinking of? I think they also did this a little bit, like that's what their like intention was in Resident Evil Extinction, in trying to domesticate, like they're trying to like not like there's a whole like thing about, it's been a while since I saw that movie, where they're trying to, anyway, but you're right, it's usually just sort of like thrown in at the end somewhere, or just a little snippet, or like that's the intention and it goes horribly wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
We're just about to get the first harvest, and I think we're gonna make it one big happy family. Oh no, buddy, I'm sorry, I gotta go. I gotta be anywhere else. Y'all have your Thanksgiving dinner tonight and enjoy it. You're gonna be somebody else's dinner soon. Like,
woof. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Freeman.
I'm just saying, zombies equals free, clean energy for everyone. All right. All right. Yeah.
Perfect. Talking like put them on a treadmill and then like put a big pane of glass on the other side, like with people behind it, and they just like shamble at them endlessly, and that generates energy for us.
Giant hamster wheel.
a giant hamster wheel to power the city.
Yes.
Technically a renewable resource. Grim but true.
Wow.
I think we've strayed now out, like it's still zombie because it's got zombies in, but we've strayed now into the territory of like not apocalyptic but dystopian dystopian zombie flicks. Anytime I think you have corporate exploitation of the there's a word for that, the working class.
Proletariat.
Thank you. That was it. Anytime you have that, I feel like we are straying dangerously close to dystopian fiction.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. No, I could see Elon Musk using the zombies in some weird, twisted way.
By putting them in submarines and never mind. That's something else. Zombies. So you have to make zombie submarines.
Musk disease. No, okay, I'll stop.
I was taking a drink.
Sorry. What is all this commie talk?
Carrie organizes. I haven't wanted to watch much dystopian media recently because we're currently in a dystopia. Yeah, no, I feel that. Like my taste for dystopian media is at a all-time low.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed when I was reading the lore for Cyberpunk Red. I really did enjoy the lore of that world. Real uncomfortable to read because it's real close to home. Like, really close to home. It's especially in the last couple of months.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really what has happened, I think, to my taste for dystopian media at present. And like I really do like the cyberpunk genre. I think it's a cool looking genre. I think there's a lot of cool stuff to explore there. Like that whole kind of chunk of sci-fi is very, very interesting to me. I just have no stamina for it right now because I read it and I'm just like, this is too close to what we've got going on right now. Danny says, "Oh, I was definitely thinking, man, the corporations are definitely hiding what's in the lure technology that they used as the carrot on the stick for zombies to shamble up towards. Can you guess what it is? It's this top secret scientific marvel in this unmarked box in these corporate facilities."
Nico's had a really interesting question, which is, it makes me want to ask the question: if it were possible to revive dead bodies without disturbing their souls or spirits or whatever else there is, would you approve of it?
This harkens back to the time that we spent a good chunk of an episode talking about bone dice made from human bones.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I would be pretty neutral about it, but it would disturb me personally. Like, I would find it disturbing, but like I wouldn't object to it on any like moral or ethical grounds. I think I would just object to it on the basis that it's like, I don't know, kind of fucked up.
And like, why too? Why would that be happening too? Like, what's the purpose?
Reanimate meat slaves. Man, I don't know.
I think it's a question that wants it's one of those things that I think I want context before I make a kind of moral judgment about it, because like on the surface I'm like it's like on the one hand, like,
well, it's interesting. Sorry, keep going.
I was gonna say, on the one hand, like, of course, we're already assuming the caveat that like you're not disturbing the soul or the spirit or anything like that. What you have essentially is a process that revives or creates a more or less like a drone out of a corpse instead of maybe other inanimate materials.
I think,
which on paper
I agree with Edge of It. I would object unless there's a volunteer program. And I think this is very interesting because there's actually something very similar to this that has happened in my homebrew D&D setting, Freeman. Remember? Right before, like, our friend Dylan's character had begun setting up, like, basically like I donate my body to science, but it's more like I donate my body to, like, defending the city, right? and it's this whole like army of undead that is basically being like raised on a volunteer basis to like not to like die, but like when they die, to be like sort of I don't know.
So I just read Tony's comment, which was, it's the whole question of if I'm cremated and put in a sand timer, is that disturbing? Which is a question that I had never thought about before you brought it up, Tony, but now I am. Wow. Yeah, no, this is the sand timer that I have that's made out of grandma. Like she's counting off 3 minutes for us every single time.
I wonder how much time we are, is what karaoke said.
How much time am I? If I was put in an oven and burned up, how much time am I? What? Oh wow!
These are the questions that we tackle here on Ramblemancy.
See, like this is a question. Like my roommate Ben will frequently there will be a lull in conversation if we're just hanging out eating dinner together, and sometimes like I'll think that he's about to like perseverate or like continue the conversation that we were having, and then he'll just like muse apropos of nothing, like, how many cats? Dead serious, like in all, like here now, how many would you like? How many at all period right now that exist? He's like, species? He's like, did I stutter? How many cats, John? Like, and that's what that question feels like. I wonder how much time where that's a question that I feel like would come from one of my roommates in those moments. Like,
oh my god.
Reminds me of that Tumblr post where someone's mom said, when I die, cremate me and put me in a sand timer so I can tell you how much time you're wasting from beyond the grave. And Tony says, I control time forever. I don't know, like,
wow.
That's the same, that it's, I think it's about the same level of macabre to me as Bone Dice, frankly, in that like it creeps me out a little bit, but also it's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is a bit, yeah. Of all the things you do with ashes, it's a little more creative than just putting it in an urn and storing it somewhere, I'd say. But it is a little bit. It's definitely macabre.
Yeah, just like
for sure.
Take some of my bones and dry them out, and then make them into dice, and then cremate me and turn me into a sand timer, and then play board games with me. I don't know.
I think
that would be a terrifying Ouija board.
Oh my god. Please do not make me into a planchet.
I don't know. On like to Nico's question, I don't know that I would necessarily object to it on like moral or ethical grounds, unless it was something that, like, yeah, I think that having like a volunteer thing is how I would be okay with that.
Donation almost. Like,
yeah.
Like that the little box that you check when you're getting your.
It would deeply creep me out. But like I wouldn't object. That's the only real, like, if it was like consensual, like whatever, like somebody opted, like an opt-in kind of thing, right? I think I would be fine with it. Well, okay, I'll be fine with it on like a moral or ethical ground, cause yeah, but on the basis of it being just sort of deeply weird, to have like something that used to be a person just sort of walking around and doing stuff. That's, I think, the only objection that I would have to it. Just that it would be
very
really
macabre.
Just a bit much.
And wouldn't they grow consciousness again?
Would they? That's a very...
Do they?
An excellent question. What's the process of animation here? What are you doing?
Right? Like, I think in Nico's stipulation, the process, at the very least, doesn't actually, like, disturb that, like, consciousness or whatever, right? True. Then it's like...
The writer in me just now has so many world-building questions.
Right, exactly.
Like, if this was essentially just, like, an empty vessel that is inhabited by nothing, or like it's like essentially just like D&D, like just essentially a magic animating force that's bound to the will of the caster. But like, does that mean that something else can come and sit in here now? If we're talking about like very real like souls and spirits of the dead that like are very real forces in the world, then like could one of those theoretically inhabit one of those things? Like, what is all of this? What tethers the soul to the body in this universe where we can reanimate the dead? Why I have questions.
A host to for a very small moment to house the soul of a loved one that you wanted to hear from, and then they vanish after that moment, and then they're no longer bound to the world as a spirit. They can then be released. You know how ghosts get kind of stuck on the planet for a while because of some, at least in some media, how the ghost is stuck to the planet because of some ill-willed thing that happened to them, and they just need to get it off their ghost chest. So they
Ghost chest.
I don't know. I'm just talking and making it up as I go here.
Ghost vest for your ghost chest.
Also, Nico, I think that's very cool, but I think there's something like that in Eberron too, isn't there? I think there is. I think there's something like that in Eberron.
Well, it kind of goes along with the practice of some cultures of burying like burying the dead in certain ways, and like having respect for the dead with the expectation that they will return in some way. So I think part of what we're bumping into here is like a cultural view of death, you know, where some people think of it as the end and others think of it like as a transformation or so I think there's something of a cultural like understanding or view of death that plays into some of this too.
Yeah, and that's what I think that specifically is the reason that I don't object to it necessarily on any sort of like moral or ethical grounds, because to me it's like, well, like a body is a body. Like I don't, if it's not a person anymore, then it's, you know, then it's not like there's not a big deal. It would feel weird, but I recognize that the reason largely it feels weird is because of like cultural cultural understanding of like what respect for the dead specifically means, and like what it means to have respect for the dead. But I'm capable of seeing past that. Personally, I think it would be weird because there's a thing that looks like a person that isn't, that used to be a person walking around and doing things, and that feels weird and wrong, but not wrong in like a moral way, just wrong in like a that's not how this works, you know, kind of way. That's not how this is supposed to work. Like I think I wouldn't have the same view of like, for example, an android, right? That wouldn't weird me out in the same way because it didn't used to be a person, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't bound to so many things in the way that like a person's body was, because like,
right, and even if it developed some sort of like you know, like sentience, self-awareness, you know, personhood, it would still be a new person, not something that was once a person that is just now just hasn't gotten the memo and is still walking around, you know. It's different. It's different. I don't know. Yeah.
It feels a little bit like you would be walking around. It feels a little bit like you would be walking around with a bunch of very hollow ghosts, you know, right? Or like the echo, not so much that, but like the echoes of people.
I think on some level it weirds me out because, see, now we're getting to the deep psychology of this, because I think that is a joke. I'm not a psychologist. I know nothing about psychology. But I think that on some level, being around, one of the reasons we find corpses so disturbing is because on some deep animalistic level, it's a reminder of mortality. And that is something that, like, we as a species that is alive fears on some level, you know? Sort of like biologically, like on a biological level, we're terrified of that because our whole like biological imperative is to perpetuate and to continue and to survive and exist, right? So I don't know. That's I think why it would be disturbing to me on that level, on like a sort of deep animalistic level, I think.
Yeah, well, like, and I think people like to imagine the soul or the spirit or like our mind in particular as being separate from our bodies. Like people talk a lot about like, oh yeah, my brain is doing this, as though it's kind of like your brain is like separate from your body, but like your consciousness very much is a part of all of this. Like your what goes on up here is inextricably tied to what goes on with the rest of you. Your body is interconnected with your consciousness and your existence.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's also part of what makes that weird, is that we are, as far as we know, of course pending any kind of spiritual beliefs, pretty much inextricable from this. And what happens after we're gone is a matter of like other stuff. But like seeing this walking around but with nothing going on in there is a very strange concept.
As one of my friends in college liked to say, although when he said it, he was describing Mondays, but the wheel is turning, but the hamster is dead.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Carl.
It's a good one.
I thought that was a Carlism.
Yeah. Danny said, yeah, animal brain sees a corpse and is like, uh-oh, something killed that guy. We gotta not be where he is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I don't know if I agree with Nico. I feel I wouldn't even. Well, okay, maybe you might not, but I don't know if in general this would be true. I feel like you wouldn't even notice them after a few months unless I'm directly interacting with them. Because I think there's instinct that plays into some of that, right? I think there's a certain amount of that is instinctual, like Danny said, right? That part of the animal brain, right? It's like the same reason why, we get like adrenaline and anxiety for things that are not life-threatening, right? Because the animal part of our brain is not something you could just like turn off, right?
We do like to imagine that we are so very far removed from like the like our kind of base like animal existence, but the reality is that we are just a very sophisticated monkey that really like that are really horny, like just in general. But like
actually technically we're just very sophisticated apes.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Very sophisticated apes. Actually, yeah, I know.
I gotta push up the glasses. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm editor for an anthropologist's comic, so I probably should have been more on top of that one. But I'm very sleepy.
Listen, super unrelated. It really bothers me when like in the show Young Justice, when Superboy's like, I don't like monkeys. I'm like, that is a gorilla, sir. A gorilla is an ape. Anyway,
get your shit straight, man. Anyway, we like to think, here sitting in my air-conditioned home with all my fancy lighting and nice clothes and stuff and all of this technology surrounding me, we like to think that we've moved very far beyond that. But the reality is the reason we have anxiety is because our brain is like, there is something in the room that is going to kill me right now. And like after hundreds of years, millennia even of being in a society where that is mostly no longer a threat, like that hasn't gone away. And so like I think there is something that would be very like deeply instinctual about the like the imminent presence of a dead thing that would be unsettling. Even though intellectually I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, it's whatever. I think they would be still deeply unsettling to a lot of people on just a very fundamental level.
Yeah. And I think that on some level you could get used to it, but I don't think that would ever completely go away. Mm-hmm. And then that also does then lead us to another question, which is like, is it a good thing to get used to that? I don't know. Like there's so much in our society that dulls our instincts anyway, as it is. Is that a particularly good one to get rid of? I don't know. I'm asking that question that is an actual real question, that's not a rhetorical question. That's not me trying to state an opinion through a question. I genuinely don't know. So I don't know. Yeah,
No, I like my instincts.
I'll keep my instincts where they are. Thank you very much. On the shelf where I put them.
Oh shit! Where did the shelf go? Yeah.
Yeah.
So where'd the shelf go? And I'm like, I know that you're talking about like a shelf, but also Danny is in chat, so I am thinking of Shelf, the Stardew Valley elf character. Their character.
Good.
SH capital E elf.
Perfect.
Good. Yes.
Shelf the elf.
Technically, we have a little bit more time, but I feel like we sort of came to a natural end point here.
Yeah, we did. Sometimes that does happen, like about 5 minutes before the 5-10 minutes before the end of the show, where we reach like a very natural end to like a conversation. It's like, well, if we start a new point, we're gonna go like 20 minutes over.
Yeah. I just said, okay, I must leave. This was fun, but I should go. Sorry, I'm doing my best shepherd over here. I should go. Anyway, all right, everybody. I think we're gonna go. But thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us and talking zombies tonight. We really didn't get a whole lot into the post-apocalypse side of it as its own thing, but I think that's fine. I think that is. We have certainly had our like episodes that were only that, so I think we're okay. But yeah.
Speaking of post-apocalypse, we published a series of post-apocalypse, like a grab bag of post-apocalypse prompts to use in your game. Adventure prompts, NPCs, items, locations, all kinds of cool stuff in there that you can take and use in any TTRPG that you happen to be running. That can be found on our Patreon. And fun fact, if you subscribe right here on twitch.tv, you have access to that and our whole backlog of them, which is pretty rad. So highly recommend doing either supporting us or Patreon or subbing here. And if you sub at higher tiers on Patreon, you get even more cool rewards, like helping us design the content that you see here on this very channel, our actual plays like Infinite Horizon. So that's, like the best way to support it, or like the best way to support us monetarily consistently. But we do also have a tip jar, coffee if you just want to like throw a one-time donation, or if you just want to like hang out, support the community, or engage with other community members. You can follow us on our socials, get announcements when we're live and when we got things going on. Join our Discord, which is a fantastic place to be greeted every single morning by a host of our community members. See all of the awesome projects that they are working on. Check out the media that they've been into, swap memes, chit chat in general, post pictures of your food, of your cats, all kinds of good stuff. It's a good place to be. Highly recommend being there. So, and that's not just because, I'm there all the time. I think that you should be where I am all the time.
That's a dangerous precedent to set. That is a dangerous thing to say to the internet.
I do not. We both need our space.
There is also you can catch pretty much all of our content that we create here. You can find a whole backlog of it on YouTube, which for some reason didn't work. Damn it.
Yeah, I noticed that with a few of the but if you're watching this on YouTube, you liked what you heard and you saw, like, subscribe, or wait, yeah, those are exactly things you do on YouTube, and leave a comment too. I had to remember which ones do what.
We do love reading them. It is so sweet every single time someone comments on one of our YouTube videos.
Yes, but also outside of that, it is a way that you can support us for free. So it does help having comments. It certainly boosts us in our governing overlord that shall not be mentioned.
Or if you speak their name, you are suppressed. It feels like Voldemort, but with like the coding that governs social media.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep.
That word that begins with A, and involves. Never mind. I'm not gonna. Rhythm.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But anyway.
It helps. Do it. Thank you in advance. All right. We are gonna go. We will hopefully see you on Wednesday for Infinite Horizon. But if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night and good zone, everybody.